Welcome to Hidden Diary. Hope you have great time in here.
I was William's simp. When he skipped class to sleep, I covered for him. When he chased the new transfer student, I delivered his love letters. After the college entrance exam, the transfer student got into a top university, and I went abroad with William. In a foreign land, I finally rose to the top, fully fed and thoroughly satisfied, until the transfer student also came to study abroad. When William Jean once again stayed out all night for her, I let out a breath of relief. I decided to return to China and build my career. The Jean family paid for me to study abroad, so I felt too embarrassed to even bring up breaking up. Chapter 1. The Jean family was the most powerful and influential in our compound. William Jean was the king of the kids. I'd followed William since we were little, because he was the best at having fun and the best looking. If his family hadn't opposed it, he would have already been scouted into the entertainment industry. With a face like William's, I could eat 2 extra bowls of rice just staring at him. And the closer I got to William, the higher my status was at home. As we got older, everyone became more aware of gender roles. Girls stopped hanging around boys all the time, but I was different. I kept shamelessly following William around. William grew up, just as everyone hoped, into a handsome young man, sharp features, a clean jawline, and a devil-may-care charm that was impossible to resist. And I gradually became the simp everyone talked about. They mocked me, looked down on me, dismissed me, but they didn't know I was the one who got the most out of it. The less William liked me, the more at ease the Jean family felt about me. My family got resources, and I got into the elite class full of rich and powerful kids, just by sticking with William. Chapter 2. High school for the privileged kids was anything but boring. Their life paths had long been planned by their families. Every road led to Rome, and even if the road was blocked, they could carve out a new one from thin air. But I was different. My family could only guarantee I had enough to eat and wear, and that I wouldn't be looked down upon in settings that required background or status. That's it. So, I clung to William even harder. When he skipped class, I covered for him. When he napped, I did his homework for him. Even when he set his sights on the new transfer student, it was me who went digging for information. She was a stubborn little white flower, admitted through full scholarships and grants. Plenty of girls had chased William before. Some sweet, some sexy, some daughters of celebrities, some daughters of officials, but all of them failed. For a while, I even suspected that William didn't like women. But the moment Freya stepped onto the podium to introduce herself, he suddenly had an awakening. He didn't know how to court someone, but still clumsily pursued Freya for 3 months. Thanks to that, I beat out all the other male simps, and played the most vital role in William's pursuit. Oh, by the way, these male simps never called themselves simps. They liked to think of themselves as William's good friends. Apparently, just because I was a different gender, my flattery was considered simping, while theirs was friendship. What a joke. I bought breakfast for Freya, played tennis with her during PE. Freya had never encountered someone so kind to her at the school. The way she looked at me was filled with gratitude and trust. And at that moment, I handed her the love letter I'd prepared in advance. Freya froze on the spot. She stared at me in disbelief. I quickly added, "It's from young Master Jean." As expected, Freya threw the letter straight into the trash can. When William Jean went to find her, he was scolded and called a spoiled rich second gen. Freya never said another word to me after that. I didn't care. I was busy comforting the heartbroken William. He'd had smooth sailing his whole life, and this was the first time he'd ever been hit with rejection. He pretended not to care and drank. But just after a couple of shots, he got himself drunk. While drunk, he cupped my face and asked me over and over again, Why doesn't she like me? I gently coaxed him. She just has no taste. William, I like you. I saw a flicker of clarity flash through his dazed eyes. Chapter 3. After being rejected by Freya, William suddenly started acting like some of his childhood buddies, changing girlfriends frequently, 1 per week. Sometimes, one might last a month, but his eyes never strayed far from Freya. Soon, the college entrance exams arrived. After it ended, Freya was admitted to a prestigious university. William chose to study abroad. When I went to the Jean house to deliver the handmade desserts from my mom, Aunt Jean asked where I was planning to go. I put on a nonchalant smile and said, "That depends on my score. You know me, Auntie. I'm not exactly good at studying, but actually, I was pretty good. It's just that all of high school, I'd been busy taking care of William. When he had a fever or caught a cold, I was the first to contact the Jean family's secretary. When he partied wildly overseas, I was the one who followed along, sending back updates." Aunt Jean looked thoughtfully at me. That summer felt like an unbearably long wait for me. Others were waiting for scores, for college admission letters, for the start of school, but I was waiting for the favor of Lady Luck. Finally, one quiet summer evening, Aunt Jean personally called and invited our family over for a gathering. I still remember how cool the breeze was that night, how clear and crisp the sound of cicadas. She didn't know that before that night, I'd already been locked up for days in solitary hope, and I won the bet. My future would be tied to William's for a long time. The brighter William's future became, the more I would be bathed in that glory and grace. A month later, William and I went abroad together, a world-class university. The looks those good friends of William gave me were filled with jealousy. "Fernanda, do you really enjoy being a simp that much? Aren't you afraid no one will ever marry you?" "Oh wait, never mind. You can simp for William your whole life, dragging your kids along like a parasite. Look at that. Just look. The jealousy of men. How ugly it is." Chapter 4. After going abroad, William became even more popular. His features had matured, the mix of youthful charm and manly allure, with sharp edges and a hint of sensuality, made hearts flutter. I continued to do whatever he asked, without complaint. The first year abroad, William really let himself go. He might be in Seattle in the morning, and Los Angeles by the evening. He still changed girlfriends frequently. During the Lunar New Year, the mistress Uncle Jean kept showed up with her 13-year-old illegitimate son and caused a scene in front of Aunt Jean. Aunt Jean told William not to come home, so I spent the New Year with him in New York. As we stayed up late for the New Year's Eve vigil, he suddenly asked me, "Fernanda, do you think some people's hearts never change?" I didn't hesitate much and replied, "Yes, they do." William laughed and said, "But I think I don't like Freya anymore. I can't even remember what she looks like now. Even though back then, I thought I'd never liked anyone so much before. I felt he was simply attracted to someone completely different from himself. Was that really love? But if you ask me, what is love? I couldn't answer either. No one ever taught us. Fireworks lit up William's excessively beautiful face outside the window. As if possessed, I grabbed William by the collar and kissed his delicate lips. Adults move fast. By the time William reacted, the arrow was already on the bowstring. There was a flash of hesitation on his face as he looked at me. "Are you sure about this?" The coursework at this elite university was brutal. On top of that, I still had to be William's nanny. I needed to blow off some steam. "William, that's your job. It's also the reward I deserve." I ran my hands over his 8-pack abs and answered his question. I was eating well, far too well. William's eyes darkened, as if he wanted to devour me whole. He was so delicate, so arrogant, so indulgent, so full of flaws. But in that body, he was a walking temptation. Lucky me, I poured out years of pressure. That stifling childhood, the twisted family dynamics, I never had a moment's relief. And I spent it all, wildly, on William. He matched my passion with equal fervor, seemingly tireless. "Fernanda, do you like me that much?" I nodded without thinking. "Fernanda, don't regret this." He stared at me stubbornly, as if trying to see into my soul. For a moment, I had a strange illusion. Could he actually like me? After that night, William and I were together. There was no official confession, no announcement, but he stopped seeing other women. Once, an Asian girl clung to him for a long time. Eventually, he lost patience and said he already had a girlfriend. That set off a storm. Lots of people started digging to find out who William's girlfriend was. A few days later, I got a call from Aunt Jean. She asked about my studies. then transferred me a 7-figure allowance. At the end of the call, she said, "Thank you for taking care of William." Before I could react, all I heard was the busy tone. She knew everything. In her eyes, I was like a concubine attending to a young master in ancient times. William happened to walk by. "Fernanda, what are you dawdling for?" I lifted my eyes and replied with a smile. Coming. Chapter 5. For the remaining 2 years of college, William and I lived a shameless, hedonistic life. Well, mostly I was the shameless one. Despite having a string of ex-girlfriends, William was surprisingly conservative about this sort of thing. Even when I threw myself at him, he would still blush. Maybe I'd just been under too much pressure these past years. I devoured William completely, sometimes just seeing me made him tremble. As graduation and our return home approached, I once overheard William Jean arguing with Aunt Jean on the phone. It seemed to be about an arranged marriage. In the end, he replied impatiently, "Fine." That night, he was unusually gentle with me. I thought, this must be our last night together. He was going to break up with me. I waited for days, but everything remained the same, so I carefully brought it up myself. He glared at me, puffing his cheeks like an angry toad. "I don't agree." He threw a tantrum, then held me tightly and said, "Fernanda, let's stay abroad, okay? Just the two of us." For a moment, I almost believed him, until Freya appeared before him again. Chapter 6. Freya was still dazzling, like a delicate white flower blooming on the edge of a cliff. She got into this school on her own, with professors fighting over her and a scholarship in hand. I saw William freeze, staring at her. His gaze never left her, just like back when Freya first transferred schools and introduced herself in front of the class. But this time was different. This time, she stepped down from her pedestal and walked over. She greeted him naturally. "William, long time no see." They exchanged contact info again. All their past unpleasantness seemed to vanish like smoke. After all they'd been through, they met again. Both of them had grown up a lot. That day just so happened to be our 2-year anniversary. I had spent a long time preparing a full dinner, even made a PPT and a short video. It documented every moment we'd shared over the years. William told me he'd be back soon. I waited 3 hours. What I got was a call from Freya. Using his phone, "Fernanda, William got a bit too happy and drank too much. Can you come pick him up?" I hesitated, but went anyway. That night, he passed out and slept through our anniversary. Later, on my birthday, he left again at a single call from Freya. The streets abroad aren't exactly safe. Freya said a thug was following her. William didn't hesitate at all. He rushed off so fast. He forgot to tell me where he was going. He strode out, the door closing right in front of me. The villa was suddenly empty, just me alone. At the same time, I received a message from Freya. "Fernanda, back then, did you intentionally make me reject William? No matter how hard you try to stop it, people who are meant to be together will find each other." Reading her taunting texts, I couldn't help but laugh. She didn't know I had wanted to break up for a long time. William didn't want to return home, but I did. He's just a spoiled rich heir. If he doesn't go back, what can he even do? Aunt Jean already arranged everything for me. If nothing goes wrong, I'll rise quickly through the ranks. My future will far outshine my father's. I'll bring honor to my family like no one else ever has. And now you're telling me you don't want to return home? If I were still William's girlfriend, how could I justify going back alone? Chapter 7. Freya sent me her location. At first, I didn't want to go disturb William and Freya, but then I suddenly remembered Aunt Jean's warning. William could mess around out there, but he mustn't cause a scandal. Jean family's money didn't come free. I had to help Aunt Jean keep things under control. I messaged William. He didn't reply. So I grabbed the half-used box of ultra-thin condoms from home and took a cab over. Outside the apartment building, I saw Freya in William's arms, crying. I was so scared. "Thank goodness you were there, darling William." "Can I call you that?" William looked tense and awkward, unsure where to place his hands. That little white flower, usually so independent and strong, was now showing such a vulnerable side. William didn't have the heart to say no. In a low voice, he replied, If you want to. Freya saw me. She smiled sweetly at me, then let out a delicate little whimper as she walked upstairs, as if she'd twisted her ankle. William didn't hesitate. He picked her up in his arms. His eyes stayed on Freya the whole time. He never saw me. They went upstairs quickly. I stood downstairs for a while, letting my swirling emotions slowly settle. A few minutes later, I knocked on Freya's door. William answered, as if he were the man of the house. Freya was sitting on the couch, one delicate foot raised, with a small medical kit beside her. One of her socks was in William's hand. The moment he saw me, William looked a little surprised. Fernanda? What are you doing here? He didn't seem too happy that I'd interrupted. Still, I fulfilled my duty and shoved the box into his hand. Don't forget this. As I said it, I even winked at him. William looked down at the box in his hand, completely frozen. I won't get in your way. See you around. Chapter 8. Just as I turned to leave, William grabbed my wrist. Fernanda, what the hell was that supposed to mean? What do you think I was doing? He crushed the little box in his hand, voice tight with barely restrained anger. His grip on my hand was forceful, almost painful. I looked over and saw Freya lounging on the couch, watching me with a half smile. When she spoke again, her voice had turned soft and pitiful. Is Fernanda jealous? We're all from the same country. William was just helping me. William, you should explain it to Fernanda. William gave a cold laugh and said, Fernanda, I hate trouble. Don't play these little games. I'm exhausted. He was referring to that other time, when he missed our 2-year anniversary, and I hadn't fully calmed down. I said a few snarky, bitter things. He'd coaxed me then, even said, Fernanda, your stubborn mouth is kind of cute. Not like now. Now, he said, you might want to pick up a book sometime, be more like Freya. With that, he let go of my hand and sat back down on the couch, his elegant fingers wrapping around Freya's ankle again. The door remained wide open, and this picture-perfect scene played out right in front of me. I let out a soft sigh and thoughtfully closed the door for them. That night, I didn't sleep well. I had a dream. In it, I was a child again, back to when I first met William. I came from a blended family. Back then, my father had just lost his wife. My mother rushed to bring me to him, like she couldn't wait. But my father never really saw me as his child. I had an older stepbrother from my dad's side, and a younger half-sister from my mom's. At home, my father was all power and presence in front of my mom, but outside, in the compound, he bowed to everyone. All the family resources went to my stepbrother. All the love went to my half-sister. I had nothing. I was invisible for years. Even if I got top scores on an exam, it didn't matter as much as my half-sister landing a golf ball into the hole. One time, I was hiding in my secret base, clutching a perfect test paper, crying quietly. That's when I met William. Chapter 9. He told me this place was his turf and ordered me to get lost. But then he saw my red eyes and tear-streaked face. He clicked his tongue in disgust, but didn't chase me away. When my mom came looking for me, he stood right by my side. I witnessed a complete 180 in my mom's expression. When we got home, she boasted to my father that I'd met William. My dad grilled me for the details. For once, they actually praised me. From then on, I understood my worth. If I wanted to survive in that house, I had to prove my value. At 10, I wasn't very good at pretending, but William still accepted me, let me into his little group of playmates. When my half-sister tried to join in, William told her to get lost. I was thrilled. I adored William even more. And so, year after year, it became almost impossible not to fall for him. After all, he was handsome, rich, and incredibly useful to me. He was like a prized exotic cat. Just having him near you won trophies. He didn't care much for anyone, not even really for me. But he needed me. He didn't like anyone else's help. So every now and then, he'd throw me a glance, let me pet him, and I couldn't stop wanting more. But none of that could compare to a future. The next morning, when I woke up, William still hadn't come back. Aunt Jean called. I answered immediately. As always, she started by asking about William. Then she changed tone and said, "You've taken good care of William. But it's about time he learned to stand on his own. A man should settle down before he builds a career. I hope he understands at least that much. That woman and illegitimate child Uncle Gene kept seemed to have no effect on her whatsoever. She was nothing like the rumors described, the heiress who nearly broke with her family to marry beneath her. But I understood exactly what she meant. So I replied without hesitation, "Auntie, don't worry, I'll break up with William right away. I won't interfere with his future relationships." Aunt Jean was pleased, but still put on the act of being concerned. "I'm only doing this for your own good. Marrying someone from your own social class is important. I know you have feelings for William." She kept going. As she spoke, the front door to the villa slowly opened and closed again. It felt like someone had been standing there for a long time. Chapter 10. William came back 3 days later. I'd seen on Freya's WeChat moments that they had gone out together. When William was with me, I was the one accompanying him to high-end places. But with Freya, he went to cheap spots and volunteer events. I noticed a new scarf around William's neck. Cheap stuff. And who gave it to him, it was obvious. William started disappearing for days without telling me where he went. In the past, I would shamelessly chase after him. But now, I was getting tired. 3 days later, it was a night of pouring rain. William returned, along with Freya. Just as I stepped inside, I heard Freya teaching William something. She was reciting complex formulas, and William leaned on his hand, watching her intently. I didn't think he understood a word. He had never been one for studying. I'd tried persuading him before, failed, just like Aunt Jean had. But now, Freya had succeeded. William was even asking questions like a model student. The rain poured harder. When Freya got up to leave, William stopped her. "There are plenty of empty rooms in the villa. You can stay." Freya looked hesitant. "But I didn't bring a change of clothes," William said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Just wear Fernanda's." "That doesn't seem right. Shouldn't we ask Fernanda first?" William gave a casual smile and said, "There's nothing wrong with it. I'm the one paying for everything. What right does she have to say no?" I didn't interrupt them. I went to make dinner as usual. William didn't like maids, so over the years, I'd filled that role myself, while I was chopping vegetables. Freya came to inform me, excessively polite. "Fernanda, I'll stay the night then. I'll be borrowing your clothes too." Then she turned to William with a teasing look. "William, me staying over won't be awkward for you and your little girlfriend, will it?" The next moment, William answered without hesitation, "Not at all. We've already broken up." Freya acted surprised. "I was just joking." "Wait, you two really were together?" "I heard some rich people keep companions to study with, and to sleep with too." "Guess it really happens." William seemed anxious about what she might think of him, so he rushed to explain. "We were only briefly together. Later we realized it wasn't working out, so we split." It was Fernanda who brought it up. His tone was cold, almost resentful. For a moment, the sound of stir-frying drowned out their voices. I focused on cooking, pretending not to have heard a thing. Anyway, I was leaving for home tomorrow. Chapter 11. That night, I moved into the guest room downstairs, but my door was kicked open. William stood there with his arms crossed. "This room, Freya's taking it." I froze. Then where was I supposed to sleep? It was definitely inappropriate to keep sharing a bed with William. After a moment of thought, I moved into the maid's quarters on the first floor. Before bed, Aunt Jean sent me a message. She had just spoken to William on the phone and noticed he sounded a little nasal. She told him to take some medicine, but knowing he wouldn't do it, she asked me to bring him the pills and make sure he took them. I got out of bed, grabbed the medicine, and went upstairs. That huge bedroom, I'd lived there for 2 years. But now, I could hear another girl's cheerful laughter from inside. I knocked and stood there for quite a while before hearing a cold come in. William glanced at the pills in my hand and let out a sneer. "Fernanda, don't you have any self-respect? You'll just do whatever my mom tells you? Were you with me all this time just because my mom told you to?" I stayed silent. What could I say? Tell him I'd long been scheming for him, that I craved his body? He'd probably tear me apart right then and there. When I didn't answer, William scoffed. "Fine, since you're that shameless. I've got nothing else to say. He looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. You really are nothing like Freya, someone who has dignity and self-respect. My heart clenched. But just for a moment. I'd always lived by one rule. Take the money. Do the job. So I followed along with his script and said, well, after all these years, you've gotten what you wanted. Congratulations. I wish you two eternal happiness. William stared at me in silence. Freya watched like it was all entertainment, then casually came up with an excuse to leave the room. Now only William and I remained. The air felt thick with awkwardness. I was flying home the next morning. The job I was taking required me to report in quickly. I'd informed Aunt Jean. She had no issue with me leaving a few days early. I'd always wanted to say goodbye to William, but the chance never seemed to come. Tonight might be it, so I cautiously said, you know, Freya could take care of you too. Freya wasn't some pampered heiress. I'd heard her family was poor. She probably knew how to handle chores, perfectly suited to looking after William. To my surprise, William refused. He shook his head. No, she's too busy with her studies. She's her professor's star pupil. She doesn't have time to take care of me. That's your job, to take care of me. My throat suddenly went dry. In that moment, I saw exactly how William saw me. Of course, one was the self-made female lead in her own story. The other was a parasite, a simp who clung to the Jean family to survive. William didn't want to burden Freya. She had her own career and future. But me? In his eyes, I was the lowly simp who should orbit around him, his live-in maid. Before dawn broke, I rolled my suitcase out of the villa. As I watched the foreign land beneath my feet shrink smaller and smaller, I knew I was stepping into the next chapter of my life. Chapter 12. I had thought Freya would move into William's villa, and the two of them would begin their happily ever after. But just 1 month later, Freya showed up in front of me. She must have been waiting for me outside my office for a while. There were several cigarette butts in the trash bin nearby. The moment she saw me, she stubbed out the one in her hand. She casually explained, I got a really good offer, so I came back early. Top-tier company, strategy department, 7-figure salary. I nodded. Congratulations. I had never seen her smoke before. In my memory, she was always the good girl. Back in high school, I remembered her tugging at her hair. Stuck on the last question of an exam, I secretly passed her a cheat sheet. She destroyed it right there and later scolded me after the test, saying cheating wasn't right. I obediently listened on the surface, but didn't take it to heart. After all, I was working to conquer her. I wanted her to trust me, to become friends with me. I subtly and repeatedly fed her the idea that I like William. I let her witness firsthand how William's childhood friends mocked me, called me a simp, picked me apart, humiliated me. I saw her face flush with anger as she rushed to defend me. Everything was going according to plan, until she tore up William's love letter and refused to be my friend anymore. Now, we stood together in the cold wind, watching people pass by. Fernanda, do you think you're clever? She asked. I didn't answer, but it seemed she wasn't expecting one anyway. You made William completely addicted to you the day after you left. He realized it. He tried calling you, only to find out you'd blocked him. He went to his mother, got a brutal scolding. She called him a weaning brat, then immediately introduced him to a potential marriage partner. She shifted gears and added, to be honest, I really didn't like William at first. Trust fund baby, useless, arrogant, stupid. The only thing he had going for him was his face. But eventually, I started to feel sorry for him. She suddenly stepped closer. I could smell the faint scent of women's tobacco on her. It was unusual. She said, you didn't make me reject William because you liked him. You did it because you didn't want me to fall into a rich boy's game. I looked up at her but didn't confirm or deny it. Girls from her kind of family could never go far with someone like William. Whether in high school or in college, William had never been truly independent. Whatever he could offer, just crumbs from between his fingers, was only enough to give Freya a comfortable youth. But girls like her didn't want a comfortable youth. They wanted a brilliant future. Then again, who was I to decide that for her? Before leaving, I said, you're overthinking it. I just didn't want you to steal William from me. He was still useful to me. I thought that might be the last time I ever saw Freya. The false friendship of our youth deserved a proper ending. From now on, we'd each walk our own bright paths. Not long after, I worked overtime for several days straight to prepare for an inspection. My days and nights flipped upside down. Finally, after finishing work and heading home, I saw William. He was standing under a streetlight, staring at me. His expression was angry, yet his eyes were filled with hurt, like a cat that had been abandoned. Chapter 13. William had run back to the country in secret. Neither Aunt Jean nor Uncle Jean knew about it, but they would very soon. The moment I saw him, I messaged Aunt Jean. "Fernanda, was it fun messing with me? Am I that easy to fool?" This arrogant cat had gotten everything he wanted, yet still acted like he was the one who'd been wronged. I couldn't find a way to soothe his fur the right way, so I just stayed silent. He walked up to me and grabbed my face tightly. "Fernanda, do you really think we couldn't make it? Or is it just that this crappy job of yours matters more to you than I do?" "Both." But I couldn't say that out loud. I was afraid if I did, he'd explode on the spot. Though, honestly, he was already losing it. "Or is it," he asked, voice trembling slightly, "that you never actually loved me?" The truth was, I had loved him, but there were too many things ahead of him on my list. And besides, he was the kind of man who stopped valuing you the moment he knew you loved him. He dated more women over the years than I'd ever seen handsome men. I wasn't drop-dead gorgeous, nor was I the smartest girl in the room. I didn't think I was the one for him, so I came up with a compromise of a response. I said, "I don't want to be in a relationship that no one blesses." William froze. With that brain of his, it probably took him a few loops to process it. Right then, the guy I'd gone on a few blind dates with recently showed up, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Who's he?" I didn't answer. I simply took the flowers from his hands. "He knows you spent all those years with me?" The date looked like he was about to get angry, so I leaned in and whispered, "Jean family's young master." Instantly, his fire was extinguished. He offered to take me away. William, seeing this unfold, got even angrier. "Fernanda, does he know you were my simp?" I ignored him and turned to leave. Just as he lunged forward to grab me, the Jean family's bodyguards finally arrived. They held William back, and I, very naturally, got into the car with my date. Chapter 14. On the day I got engaged, William showed up and caused another scene, only to be dragged away again by the Jean family's bodyguards. My fiancé's family didn't get angry. Naturally, neither did mine. We graciously accepted the Jean family's formal apology and made sure all guests deleted their videos. Everything was resolved rather smoothly. Just before the Jean family left, I overheard Uncle Jean saying to William, "No woman will love you like this. You can't win Fernanda back because you have nothing." William stared at me like his eyes were about to bleed. "When you finally have everything," Uncle Jean continued, "you won't care about a Fernanda anymore." That was when William finally stopped struggling. His lips were bleeding from being bitten. He slowly let out one word, "Fine." After that, I rarely saw William again. He stepped onto the path the Jean family had paved for him, a golden road. Even Rome itself would bend to meet him. Every time I heard news about him, it came with envious praise from others, and I felt a little jealous. I suddenly wondered, maybe what I felt for William when I was younger wasn't really love. Women often mistake their jealousy toward men for attraction, and their affection toward other women for rivalry. Chapter 15. 3 years later, my career had hit a plateau. My husband and I discussed having a child. In those 3 years, I hadn't seen William again, though sometimes I caught a familiar profile reflected in a passing car window. It was probably just my imagination. During holidays, when I returned to the compound, I ran into William a few times. I greeted him, and he replied, as if nothing had ever happened between us. Once I had the idea of having a child, I brought it up with my husband. Over the years, we'd had marital relations once or twice, but neither of us was passionate about it. I knew he had someone outside, but he also understood that I was his real partner in shared interest. I turned a blind eye to his affairs, and he let me do as I pleased. When I suggested having a child, he didn't object. He just asked, "Boy or girl?" That question meant one thing, IVF. I replied, Either's fine. My family can't dictate my life anymore. What about yours? If his family had any preferences, they'd have to pay for them. He thought for a moment and said, I'll go talk to them. The next day, to make the pregnancy plan seem natural, I casually brought up children in a chat with my subordinates. At the right moment, I said, kids are so adorable. I think I want one too. Everyone here was socially savvy. My subordinate followed up immediately, you really should have one. You've put so much time and energy into your career. Your husband's really understanding. If it were mine, we'd be fighting every day. I smiled. Yeah, I'm lucky he's so patient. I knew that conversation would spread soon enough. I went to the hospital to consult about IVF, but just a few days later, I was reassigned to a post so demanding, I practically couldn't go home. A demotion in name, but a promotion in reality. Just like that, my path to advancement was cleared again. My new supervisor took special care of me. I had a pretty good idea who was behind it. Chapter 16. Another 3 years passed. After my husband's illegitimate child showed up at our door, I used the opportunity to file for divorce, but he refused. It wasn't out of love. It was because my position had long surpassed his. He said, all these years, you've never put your energy into our home. Who else but me could tolerate a woman like that? To be fair, his tolerance was high. He'd married me back then without blinking. Even in the past 2 years, when people dug up my history with William, he pretended not to know. But I didn't need any of that. When people lack something in childhood, they tend to chase it in adulthood. Like how I once lived in a tiny room, a former storage space converted for me. So now I bought a big house, combining 2 bedrooms to make a grand master suite. There were too many things I was deprived of in childhood. So for years, I had been striving, grasping. In a way, I think I've made up for it. As that phrase on the internet goes, I raised myself all over again. But what I overlooked was, this was also my first time raising myself, and I didn't actually know what I truly wanted. It felt like I'd gotten everything. And yet, nothing at all. The divorce went fairly smoothly, as long as compensation was properly negotiated. The day I walked out of the civil affairs office, I saw William sitting in a car across the street. His demeanor had become much more composed. Still as handsome as ever. No bodyguards this time, just a driver. He glanced at me, then drove away. My husband, no, ex-husband, laughed and sighed. How devoted he is. All these years, he never got married. Still waiting for you. He heard about your divorce and came to be there for you. I smiled and shook my head. That's not what it was. I think he just wanted to test that sentence Uncle Gene once said. One day, when you have everything, you won't care about a Fernanda anymore. Now, he could have me easily. But now, does he still want me? I looked at the car as it disappeared into the distance, and I think I already knew the answer. Love is like revisiting a familiar place. Like carving a mark on a boat to remember where your sword fell. When you return, your heart is no longer where it once was. Over these years, William must have also figured out why I stayed by his side in the first place. A missed chance is just that, a missed chance. But that doesn't mean it's a regret. Story 2. The 9th year of entanglement with Leo, his mistress stormed into my birthday party, declaring their true love and demanding that I grant them a divorce so they could be together. Leo watched coldly, waiting for me to clean up the mess caused by his disobedient lover, just as I always had. But that day, I suddenly felt tired of it all. I stood up and gave him a faint smile. I'm going to get some fresh air in the garden. Leo didn't think much of it, assuming I went out to cry in private, as usual. But 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3, and I never returned. He finally went looking for me. In the garden, all he found was a burnt-out cigarette and a ring. He knew I wasn't coming back. Chapter 01. Year 5 of marriage. By the 5th year of our marriage, Leo had taken in a delicate and enchanting ballet dancer. Her name was Sandra. I heard that the first time Leo saw Sandra, he was captivated by her graceful elegance, her movements as ethereal as a fairy dancing under the moonlight. He kept her hidden away, treating her like a treasure, too precious to be seen by anyone. including me. But now, Sandra had come to me of her own accord. Her eyes were red, filled with accusations as she looked at me. Leo doesn't love you anymore. The one he loves now is me. Don't you think it's cruel and unreasonable to keep him tied to you through marriage? Leo and I are truly in love. Please grant us a divorce and let us be together. She cried pitifully, like a tragic heroine whose happiness was being obstructed by a wicked villain, me. I found it laughable. True love? You fell in love with another woman's husband. Don't you find that disgraceful? Sandra's face turned pale, but in the next moment, she cried even harder, looking even more pitiful. Yes, you're right. Falling for a married man is disgraceful, and I deserve your scorn. But love itself isn't wrong. I just want to be with the man I love forever. I really love Leo. I don't want to leave him. Can't you just let us be together? Her words were absurd and naive, but Leo found her charming and fearless. He wiped away her tears tenderly and coaxed her in a gentle voice. All right. Stop crying. I'll stay with you tonight. The room fell silent. He trampled on my dignity to defend Sandra. This was a kind of affection he had never shown his previous lovers. In the past, other women had come to me demanding I leave. When Leo found out, he made sure those women suffered. He had warned everyone. Miranda is my wife. No one is allowed to provoke her. But today, Sandra ruined my birthday, and instead of punishing her, Leo indulged her. After instructing his secretary to escort Sandra home, he walked up to me and spoke in a low voice. Don't worry, I won't let her act out again, so don't lay a hand on her. He was warning me. I didn't respond right away. Leo frowned slightly, his gaze icy. Miranda, Sandra is young and doesn't know better. He even made excuses for her. I understand. Don't worry, I interrupted, nodding in agreement. Leo's expression softened. He reached out to take my hand, but I instinctively pulled away. His face darkened with displeasure, but I only smiled at him and said, I'm going to the garden to get some fresh air. Leo nodded. Come back soon. We'll cut the cake together. Okay. I turned and left, his eyes fixed on my back, but I didn't look back. Not even once. Chapter 02. I stepped out of the banquet hall and into the drizzle. I lit a cigarette. Through the swirling smoke, for some reason, I suddenly recalled the day Leo proposed to me. It seemed to be raining that day too. We met when we were 3 years old, fell in love at 16, and at 23, when Leo's business took off and he earned his first fortune, he proposed to me. Miranda, will you marry me? That day, he knelt in front of me, his hands trembling so much that he couldn't hold the ring properly. I lowered my eyes to look at him and asked just one question. Will you love me forever? Without hesitation, he swore, always. I believed him. I believed he meant it at the time. But feelings change so easily. At 27, Leo started seeing a younger, prettier woman. When I found out, he knelt before me, crying and begging me not to divorce him, promising he would change. But once there's a first time, there will always be a second, a third, and a fourth. Now, he doesn't even bother to hide it anymore, and I don't bother to make a scene. I've fought enough. I've seen enough. Like with Sandra, Leo treats her differently. For her, he warned and threatened me 3 years ago. Such a scene would have left me shattered and sobbing. But now, I only feel tired and disgusted, because I know better than anyone that Leo will never divorce me for Sandra. It has nothing to do with love. Our years of marriage have created too many ties, too many shared interests. Divorce would be messy and offer him no benefits. He won't do it, and he's certain I won't either. After all, I've brought up divorce more than once over the years, but it always ended inconclusively. At first, it was because of love. Later, it was because of pride. But no matter the reason, after so many years of enduring this, I should have been used to it by now. Yet this time, I suddenly felt done. I didn't want to keep playing along. The ash fell from my cigarette. It burned my fingertips, making me flinch. Just then, a waiter approached me and whispered, Madam, the boss says it's time for you to return and cut the cake. Return? I snapped back to reality. After a brief pause, I extinguished the cigarette and smiled faintly. Tell Leo I'm not coming back. Chapter 03. The waiter relayed Miranda's words to Leo. Leo's expression darkened. The others quickly tried to console him. Madam is probably just in a bad mood. Women throw little tantrums sometimes, boss. You should let it slide. Women need to be coaxed, boss. Why don't you go and cheer her up? Hearing this, Leo wavered. He and Miranda had known each other since childhood. No one understood better than him how deeply Miranda loved him. Today, he had asked Miranda to be lenient with Sandra and to coax Sandra into leaving. He had promised to spend the night with her. He shouldn't have said that. It was Miranda's birthday. He should have stayed by her side tonight. He had made a mistake. With that thought, Leo turned to the waiter. Was she crying? Miranda had always been a crybaby. She cried when she was sad, cried when she was happy, and even cried over tragic TV dramas, often losing sleep over them. She was sensitive and fragile. She must have been upset by his words earlier and had used the excuse of getting fresh air to go outside and cry in private. Leo felt a pang of guilt. Miranda was his wife, and today was her birthday. He shouldn't have embarrassed her because of Sandra. He owed her an apology. But just as he was thinking this, the waiter shook his head. No. Madam looked very happy and radiant. Leo frowned slightly, surprised by the answer. But after a moment, his expression turned cold, and his voice was as frigid as ice. Then what's her problem? She's acting like a child. If she doesn't want to come back, so be it. The guests exchanged uneasy glances but dared not intervene further. They could only wait. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. Still, Miranda did not return to the banquet hall. Leo's expression grew colder. He stood and headed to the garden. A wealthy wife throwing a tantrum and leaving over a mistress, how immature and undignified. She had made herself the subject of gossip. When he saw her, he would definitely reprimand her. But when he arrived, the garden was already empty. The sound of rain filled the air. Near a trash bin, there was only a burnt-out cigarette and a ring. Leo's heart clenched. It was the silver ring he had used to propose to her. Over the years, he had gifted Miranda countless pieces of jewelry, yet she cherished that simple silver ring the most, treating it like a treasure. But now, she had carelessly tossed it into the trash. She didn't want it anymore. At that moment, the wind picked up, carrying the rain and soaking through Leo's shirt. He felt cold to the bone. Yet his mind had never been clearer. Miranda wasn't coming back. Chapter 04. When I returned to the villa, the first thing I did was contact my lawyer. The lawyer, experienced and professional, quickly went over the division of assets with me. After all, this wasn't the first time he'd helped me prepare for a divorce, although the previous attempts always ended inconclusively. But this time was different. I was serious, focused. I didn't know how much time had passed when my phone rang. It was Leo. He had likely realized that I had left early without informing him, leaving him embarrassed in front of the guests. He sounded a little annoyed when I picked up. Miranda, what exactly are you trying to do? I gestured for the lawyer to pause. Then, with a calm voice, I replied, I want a divorce. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. When Leo spoke again, his tone had softened. Because of Sandra? I didn't respond, thinking he had guessed the reason. Leo seemed relieved. His voice took on a coaxing tone. Miranda, she ruined your birthday. That was her fault. You have every right to be upset. I'll have her come over and apologize to you right now. At this point, he still thought I was acting out because of Sandra, yet he wasn't willing to cut ties with her. I found it a little ridiculous. I let out a faint chuckle and interrupted him, my voice steady and calm. Leo, this has nothing to do with anyone else. Then why? I want a divorce because I don't love you anymore. Leo, the road ahead is long. I just won't be walking it with you anymore. The words felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. There was a touch of melancholy. But more than that, there was a sense of relief and freedom. Leo was silent for a moment. On the other end, I could hear the faint tapping of his fingers against the table, a sign that he was deep in thought. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and heavy. What are you trying to pull this time? Chapter 05. He still thought I was just throwing a tantrum. It was a familiar scenario. Every time I caught him cheating, After every fight and every tearful confrontation, he would look at me with that same exhausted and indifferent expression, his eyes filled with confusion, and he would ask, "Over the years, my money and shares in the company have all been in your hands. Those women were nothing more than meaningless flings. No one could ever threaten your position. You will always be my wife. Mrs. Leo, whatever you want, whatever you wish to buy, you can have it immediately. Look around at the women near you. So many of them are struggling just to make ends meet. Their annual salaries don't even match the starting price of one of your rings. Miranda, what exactly are you upset about? What more do you want?" Yes, what more could I possibly want? A life of luxury and privilege. So many people envied me, even my father. After beating Leo severely, eventually softened and tried to persuade me. "Let it go," he said. "Pretend you don't know. Make it work. Love doesn't hold a candle to financial security." I understood the logic, but I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept that childhood sweethearts and partners through hardships would end up in a hollow, loveless marriage. I couldn't accept that love would decay into resentment and indifference. So I cried. I fought. And I brought up divorce over and over, hoping to provoke his regret and win back his love. But all I achieved was turning lovers into enemies. Love so intense it breeds hatred. Hatred so consuming it breeds death wishes. I never used to believe that saying, but in those darkest moments, I did. Leo, you probably won't believe this, but there was a time I wanted to kill you, and then kill myself. I thought my words would horrify him, but instead, he asked, "So why didn't you?" I froze. Then I let out a soft laugh. My voice was light as I replied, "Because that day, you called me sweetie." Chapter 06. Sweetie, a cherished treasure. My mother passed away early, and my father raised me alone. He gave me a nickname, Sweetie. When Leo learned about it, he started calling me that too, and he called me that for many, many years. When we were young, he would hold my hand as we ran through the fields to school, turning back to smile at me, "Sweetie, hurry up, or we'll be late." On our wedding night, he kissed my forehead, his fingertips trembling, "Sweetie, I love you." The day my father died, he held me tightly in his arms, whispering over and over, "Sweetie, you're not an orphan. From now on, you have me. Don't be afraid." Back then, he loved me the most, but somewhere along the way, he stopped calling me sweetie. Instead, it became Miranda. Just Miranda. I thought I had long forgotten that nickname, until that night, when I got him drunk and pressed my hands around his neck, tightening my grip bit by bit. He opened his drunken, hazy eyes. He saw my tear-streaked face, and instead of panicking about his tied-up hands, he frowned and asked, "Baby, why are you crying? Did someone bully you?" I froze. He was drunk. He didn't remember betraying me, hurting me. He only remembered loving me and hating to see me cry. So when I told him it was him who had hurt me, Leo panicked immediately. He looked up at me, his voice full of guilt. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I was wrong. Hit me if you want. But tomorrow, let me take you out for roasted sweet potatoes, okay?" When I was young, I loved roasted sweet potatoes from the stall at the village entrance, but I could never bring myself to buy them. Leo always saved up money to buy them for me, and whenever I offered him a bite, he would refuse. Only if I forced it on him would he finally take a bite. We were poor then, but we loved each other the most. Whenever he made me angry, he'd stare at me with pitiful eyes, like a puppy afraid of losing its owner, just like he did that night. And I, spinelessly, gave in. I let go of his neck and untied the ropes. As his anxious voice called out behind me, I walked out the door, climbed to the rooftop, and looked down. I thought that if I couldn't kill Leo, then maybe I should just end my own life. But as soon as that thought crossed my mind, a loud, piercing sound split the night. I turned toward the noise. Fireworks burst one after another in the sky before me. Red, blue, pink, brilliant, beautiful, lighting up half the sky. A breathtaking sight. Now, as I look out through the window at the dark night sky, where there are no fireworks, I speak softly and gently. At that moment, I suddenly didn't want to die anymore. I even felt relieved that I hadn't killed you. Otherwise, I would never have seen such beautiful fireworks again. Leo stayed silent for a long time on the other end of the call. I thought he was shocked by my past madness. But after a while, he suddenly asked, "Do you still want to kill me?" His tone was serious, so I thought for a moment and answered him just as seriously. "No, you're not worth it." Chapter 07. Leo refused to agree to the divorce. It had nothing to do with love. After so many years of marriage, our interests had become deeply entangled. Divorce would be a major upheaval for him, financially and legally. The division of assets would even impact the company's IPO. Aside from regaining his single status, there was no benefit in it for him. Leo was an excellent businessman. He never did anything that wasn't in his best interest. So he chose to ignore it, just like he had ignored my past outbursts. This time, he ignored my request, as well as the divorce agreement and the asset division documents sent by my lawyer. I had no intention of fighting with him. I simply told my lawyer to inform Leo that if he refused to settle amicably, I would take him to court. Then I packed my things and left Beijing. Right before the plane took off, I received a message from Leo. "Miranda, you know this is the most critical time for the company's IPO. Do you really have to do this now? After all these years, do we really have to end it like this?" I thought for a moment and replied, "Yes, we do." Chapter 08. The plane's destination was Iceland, at the meeting point of the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. I stayed in a seaside town where I could see the ocean just by opening the window. Heading further south, surrounded by green fields, I saw the red house from the eye test charts. I realized then it actually existed. The wind blew, making the grass sway. It was beautiful. I joined a tour group. The guide was an Asian woman who skillfully led us through tastings of local delicacies and tours of historical sites. Among the group was a young couple. They were inseparable, clearly deeply in love. I once saw the boy practicing his proposal speech over and over again in private, stumbling at first but growing more confident with each attempt. It took him 3 days. Then, at the Roman temple, surrounded by a shower of rose petals, he proposed. "Fiona, will you marry me?" Despite all the practice, his voice still trembled and faltered, even worse than his first attempts. Awkward, shaky, but sincere. "Yes, I will." The girl, eyes brimming with tears, accepted the ring. Amid cheers and applause, she threw herself into his arms. They held each other tightly, under a cascade of petals. It seemed as though they had embraced the entire world. On the way back, the boy went to pack their things, and the girl sat down next to me. She carefully touched the ring on her finger, cherishing it, and then noticed the faint mark of a ring on my own finger. She blinked and looked at me. "Were you married, too?" "Yes." She was naturally chatty, and upon hearing I'd been married, her curiosity piqued. "How old were you when you got married?" "I just started working. Do you think I'm too young to have said yes?" She was young. Her eyes were filled with dreams of the future, admiration for her fiancé, and nervousness about marriage, afraid of choosing the wrong person, of taking the wrong path. Unlike me, naive and fearless, I had chosen Leo. I believed love could overcome anything. But later, I realized that love was the source of all obstacles. Marriage brought me nothing but endless wounds and tears. My marriage was undoubtedly a failure, so I had no grounds to offer her romantic advice or inspirational speeches. I simply told her, "I got married at 23. Now I'm 32 and preparing for a divorce. For me, marriage isn't about age. If you like someone, be with them. If you don't, leave them. Keep it pure and simple." She listened, nodding uncertainty, and then hesitantly asked, "Are you divorcing because you fell out of love?" I smiled and nodded. Yes, we grew tired of each other. Chapter 09. On the 7th day after Miranda left, Sandra had just finished her performance, and Leo personally went to pick her up. On the way back, Sandra began scrolling through short videos on her phone. "I got married at 23. Now I'm 32 and planning to get a divorce. Is it because you don't love him anymore?" "Yes, we got tired of each other." Leo's whole body tensed, and he turned to look. He couldn't see the woman's face, but he knew that voice. It was Miranda. She said she didn't love him anymore. She said she was tired of him. It was absurd, completely ridiculous. Miranda's mother passed away early, and her father had died a few years ago. Other than him, she had no one else in this world to rely on. She couldn't leave him, even though she had brought up divorce more than once over the years. Leo knew the truth. Miranda was the one who couldn't bear to let go. She couldn't leave him. She cared more than anyone about having a family of her own. The divorce, the arguments, they were all just tactics to get his attention. There was no way she didn't love him anymore. Leo tried to reassure himself, but deep down, an uneasy feeling spread like a shadow. Desperate for reassurance, he pulled the car over to the side of the road, ignoring Sandra's puzzled look, and took out his phone to send Miranda a message. But when he opened their chat, the last message he had sent, asking when she was coming home, still had no reply. Scrolling further up, he saw her last words, to handle everything through her lawyer and not to contact her. He hesitated. Then he decided to ask where she was. But his message was met with a red exclamation mark. Miranda had blocked him. Leo's fingers trembled slightly. A hollow feeling suddenly gripped his chest. And just then, he heard the girl in the video ask Miranda if he came back now, truly regretting everything and wanting to win you back. Would you forgive him? No. Miranda's voice was soft but resolute. Leo clenched his phone tightly, his jaw taut. She was lying. Miranda was lying. There was no way she wouldn't forgive him. She loved him too much. He refused to believe otherwise. Chapter 10. The day I returned home, Leo came to pick me up personally. He looked sharp, tall, and striking, holding a large bouquet of roses. He walked toward me, attracting quite a bit of attention. Miranda, welcome back. I didn't take the flowers. His brows furrowed slightly, but then he naturally took my suitcase. Baby, stop being difficult, okay? He called me baby. In the past, that might have softened my heart. But now, I just felt puzzled. He didn't seem to know what he truly wanted. When he opened the car door, I noticed Sandra sitting inside. I frowned slightly. Leo quickly explained, Miranda, I know you're still upset that Sandra ruined your birthday. I brought her here to apologize to you. Sandra lowered her eyes, looking pitiful. I'm sorry, sis. It's all my fault. Please don't be mad at Leo, okay? I silently watched the performance unfold. I didn't say a word. Leo reached out to hold my hand, but I avoided him. He sighed, as if helpless, and tried to compromise with me. If you don't like her, I'll end things with her. Is that okay? At those words, Sandra turned pale, staring at Leo in disbelief. But I refused him. No need. Younger women have their own charms. Leo froze. What? Before he could react, a young man suddenly knocked on the car window. When he saw me, he climbed in without hesitation, took my hand, and intertwined his fingers with mine. Sister, how could you leave me behind? Before I could speak, Leo's expression darkened as he stared coldly at the boy's hand holding mine. Who is this? The boy glanced back at Leo. Then he looked at me. Your ex-husband? I nodded. The boy smiled brightly, radiating youthful energy that was almost blinding. Nice to meet you. Ex-husband. I'm Luis, her new boy toy. His tone was unnervingly calm. Sandra frowned in disgust. How shameless can you be? Luis rolled his eyes. Excuse me? Aren't you the ex-husband's mistress? And now you're acting all high and mighty? If anyone here should be ashamed, it's you. You're a homewrecker, a shameless, disgusting homewrecker. His words hit Sandra like a barrage of bullets. Her face turned pale, her eyes red, and she trembled in anger. She looked at Leo pitifully, hoping he would defend her like he always had. But Leo didn't even glance at her. Let's go home, he said. I spoke up. Take me to my apartment, the place where I now lived. Luis had insisted on following me back home, and since he had nowhere else to stay, he moved into my apartment. Leo gripped the steering wheel tightly. Come home. I need to talk to you. It wasn't a request, it was an order. I frowned in displeasure, but seeing the look on Leo's face, I relented and nodded. Fine. Chapter 11. I returned to the villa. The layout was exactly the same as when I had left. A bit messy. After all, when I left, I took everything valuable with me. Leo's first words were an interrogation. Who is he? I raised an eyebrow. My lover. Didn't you say before that you couldn't accept an open marriage? And now you've found yourself a young man. Did you have fun with him these past few days? Leo frowned tightly. He looked up at me, a faint, careless smile on his lips, but his eyes were cold. I looked back at him and smiled. Yes, a lot. Young men have plenty of energy. My bluntness left Leo speechless, silencing his sarcasm. I grew impatient. Leo, is this what you wanted to talk about? If so, I won't waste my time. He's young, and he always has nightmares when he sleeps alone. I'll go keep him company. Those words should have sounded familiar to Leo. After all, he used to say the same thing to me. Leo clearly remembered it too. His face turned dark, but the next second, he stepped closer, looking down at me and smiling. Miranda, let's end things with them and start over, okay? The person I love is you. I pushed him away and looked at him with exhausted eyes. You don't love me. You're just upset because someone you never thought would leave actually left. And it hurt your pride. You've always been a perfectionist. When you were a kid, if a cookie had a broken corner, you'd rather go hungry than eat it. Now, you'd rather find one woman after another outside while keeping me here to preserve your perfect marriage. After all these years, I know him better than anyone. I know his coldness, his selfishness. He grew tired of me, but he won't allow anyone else to have me. That's not love. It's arrogance. Leo, you're sick. Get help before it's too late. Chapter 12. Leo fled in embarrassment, but the next day, he was outside my door again. He wanted to drive me to and from work. I didn't refuse. Since the divorce hadn't been finalized, we were still the respectable power couple we had always appeared to be. Leo treated me better than ever, reporting every little thing he did, message after message. I didn't read them, let alone reply. At the company, people still called me Mrs. Leo. They knew my status, and I had no interest in working a 9-to-5 job. With enough money, I had no hobby of enduring hardships. I held a nominal position, only showing up at the office occasionally. I had friends at the company, so I heard about Sandra through them. This time, after seeing Leo constantly lingering near my office, one friend asked if Leo had changed his mind. I laughed, then invited her out for dinner after work. She agreed, and I texted Leo, telling him not to pick me up. I'll pick you up afterward. Okay, I agreed. Chapter 13. I left work with my friend, in the underground parking lot. As she drove, she said, Leo must have broken up with Sandra, right? I told you he still cares about you. No matter how much he liked her, he'd never keep her if it made you angry. I smiled. Maybe. Over the past few days, Sandra had called Leo quite a few times. I had seen it, but Leo never answered. Even when I told him, answer it, it might be something important. Leo looked at me with a complicated expression, frustrated and hurt. You don't care. I looked at him and shook my head. No, I don't. I had stopped caring a long time ago. Yet Leo blocked Sandra's number right in front of me, as if he really had a change of heart. During dinner, my friend asked me, if he's changed, are you still going through with the divorce? I didn't answer. I looked out the window. The sky was dark, and the streets were nearly empty. A man stood under a streetlight. I couldn't see his face, but his tall figure was striking. A girl ran out of the apartment building and threw herself into his arms. The man bent down and kissed the corner of her eye. A car passed by them. The headlights lit up their faces. It was Leo and Sandra. I watched them quietly for a moment and then took pictures of everything. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Leo. Are you done? I'll come pick you up. No need. I'm not coming home tonight. He replied instantly. Okay. I looked down. Leo was holding Sandra's hand, leading her into the apartment. Both of them were smiling. Chapter 14. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by the ringing of my phone. It was Sandra. She sent me a photo. Leo was sleeping soundly, his head resting on her chest. Her chest was covered in scattered kiss marks. Sensual, sticky. Gone was the cold elegance she once had. Your husband is amazing, sis. He's long lost interest in you. Why do you keep clinging to him? At least keep some dignity for yourself. I saved the photo, thought for a moment, and transferred her 50 cents. Memo, payment. Sandra lost it, bombarding me with messages. I didn't read a single one. Instead, I forwarded the photo to my lawyer. Evidence of infidelity. Get me as much as you can. The lawyer replied instantly, don't worry. Chapter 15. The next morning, when I went downstairs, Leo was already waiting at the door. Good morning, Miranda. He looked refreshed, satisfaction lingering between his brows after a night of indulgence. He had brought me breakfast, pan-fried buns and soy milk, my old favorites. I picked at one or two absent-mindedly, answering his questions half-heartedly. My indifference was obvious. Since rising to power, no one had treated him with such blatant disregard. His expression darkened. Miranda, do you really have to treat me like this? He stopped the car and looked at me, and to my surprise, there was a hint of grievance in his eyes, as if I had wronged him. But faced with my calm, indifferent gaze, he couldn't say anything. Then just sign the divorce papers. If you can't stand it, let it go. The words hung in the air. Leo's face turned cold. Not a chance. His tone was firm. I sighed, leaning back against the seat, part resignation, part exasperation. Leo, why are you so pathetic? When I loved you, you hurt me. When I stopped loving you, you clung to me. Pathetic. You're exhausted. Chapter 16. Leo continued to refuse to sign the divorce papers, so we remained married. But Leo was clingy, too clingy. I knew he was trying to keep me away from Luis. Yet when Luis couldn't find me, he would wait for me outside the office, clinging to my arm and pouting, asking if I didn't care about him anymore. I smiled and coaxed him. Of course, I care. Under the watchful eyes of others, I sent him away. But when I turned around, I saw Leo standing at the entrance, watching me from a distance. I didn't know how much he had seen, but he said nothing, turning and leaving the company alone, as if he was sulking. But I didn't care. It rained today, the weather turned cold, and I went home alone. As soon as I arrived, Leo took my hand and led me to the dining room. Didn't you say you wanted lamb soup from the south of the city? I bought it for you. His hand was ice cold. I glanced at him and noticed he was soaked through, his face pale from the cold, yet his eyes were filled with hope and eagerness to please. I took one sip and put the spoon down. It smells gamey. You drink it. I turned to leave, but Leo grabbed my wrist. I went out of my way to get this for you because you said you liked it. It took me 2 hours to find the stall. It started raining, and the stall had no cover. So I waited in the rain. But you only took one sip, and you didn't even care enough to ask if I was okay. Miranda, what's wrong with you? His fingers trembled, and his eyes were full of confusion. You weren't like this before. So what? I looked him straight in the eyes, my gaze calm and unwavering. I stopped liking you a long time ago. To me, you're a stranger now. Do you expect me to fuss over a stranger? You go out of your way for me and expect gratitude. How is that not ridiculous? It was as if my words shattered something in him. You can't not love me. I already looked into it. Luis is just your friend. You two have nothing going on. You're just using him to make me jealous. Deep down, you still care about me. Miranda, baby, you love me, don't you? He looked down at me, his gaze careful and hopeful, but I noticed his death grip on his hands, his knuckles turning white as if my answer would be the final straw that determined his fate. I smiled and cut him off completely. For now, we're just friends. But life is long. Eventually, I'll find someone to spend it with. I'm afraid of loneliness. After my father died, more than anyone, I wanted a home of my own, so I never planned to spend my life alone. A man, a woman, a partner, any of those would do. Leo's eyes turned red, and he asked, why can't it be me? It can't. I didn't hesitate. Ignoring the way Leo's face instantly went pale, I smiled, turned around, and walked away. I never looked back. Chapter 17. Sandra came looking for me. She brought a pregnancy test report. Compared to the cold, fairy-like appearance she had when we first met, she now carried an air of sultry sophistication, evidence of a woman deeply indulged in passion. It made her even more alluring. No wonder Leo couldn't let her go. Who would be willing to give up such a delicate flower? Sandra told me she was pregnant. She said the reason Leo had been treating me so well lately was because he wanted me to accept the child. After all, I couldn't have children. Hearing this, I raised my eyes to look at her. Leo told you I can't have children? What else? Sandra smirked, her tone dripping with provocation. But Miranda, who doesn't know in our circle that you can't have kids? She was right. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I had a miscarriage at 3 weeks after discovering Leo's affair. I lost the baby during the argument. And after that, I never had another child. Many people speculated that I had been left infertile, whispering behind my back. They offered solutions, women, promises. But I took a sip of my floral tea, smiling calmly without a trace of anger. It's not that I can't have children, I simply refuse to have them with him. Because he doesn't deserve it. If you want to have his child, that's your problem. Don't drag me into it. And as for divorce, I've been ready anytime. He's the one who refuses. But honestly, you two deserve each other, one cheap, the other cheaper. Sandra's face flushed red, her voice sharp. Miranda, he loves me. You're just a washed-up old woman. I raised my hand and splashed the floral tea in her face. Then I stood up, looking down at her, soaked and humiliated. I spoke indifferently. If you're so sure of his love, then hurry up and convince him to sign the papers and stop bothering me. Sandra, I'll be waiting for your good news. Chapter 18. What a pity. Sandra was useless. She stormed into the house, announcing her pregnancy to Leo, her face glowing with the tenderness of a first-time mother. But Leo's first reaction was to look at me, Miranda. This was an accident. Every time His words left Sandra stunned. But moments later, she snapped out of it and clutched Leo's arm. Leo, you clearly said you wanted to have a child with me. You said you hoped the baby would be as beautiful as I am. How can you call this an accident? This is supposed to be the result of our love. Tell me you love me. Tell me you're tired of Miranda. Why won't you divorce her? What can she give you? I love you. We're having a child. Why won't you marry me? Leo's expression turned cold. He lowered his eyes to her. Get rid of it. Sandra instinctively covered her stomach, her eyes filled with sorrow and desperation. No, I won't. This is our child. How can you be so heartless to ask me to abort it? Girls always look beautiful when they cry, pitiful and fragile. But Leo's eyes rested on her belly without the slightest trace of emotion. I won't repeat myself. Get rid of it. Sandra screamed and covered her ears, as if blocking out the cruel words would make them disappear. The two of them were locked in a standoff. I glanced briefly at the hidden camera and continued watching the show unfold with detached amusement. Sandra eventually collapsed from exhaustion. Leo had her sent to the hospital. I'm sorry, Miranda. I'll handle this properly. He promised me. I paused, then smiled. Don't bother. I don't care. The words fell. Silence filled the room. Leo stared at me, his dark eyes swirling like a pool of ink. But the corners were tinged with fragile red. You don't care? He looked utterly wounded by my indifference. I met his gaze firmly. It wasn't until he instinctively grabbed my wrist that I noticed how badly his fingers were trembling. How can you not care? You're supposed to be upset. You cry so easily. Why aren't you crying now? Miranda, baby, please don't look at me like that. There was a hint of pleading in his voice. At that moment, he seemed pitiful, reduced to begging for my pity. But all I felt was disgust at him and at the dirt he represented. Should I care? We're getting divorced. Who you have kids with, and how many, has nothing to do with me anymore. Leo, I truly don't love you anymore. Watching his figure waver, on the verge of collapse, I smiled. We've known each other for so long. Let's at least end things with dignity. Sign the papers. Chapter 19. Leo finally signed the papers. He had no choice. Sandra had revealed her pregnancy to the media, turning their scandal into a public spectacle. The stock market wavered. Shareholders were dissatisfied. Leo didn't want me to sue him, and with his affair now widely exposed, my lawyer secured the maximum settlement. 70% of all assets. The lawyer told me. Technically, It was 60%. The extra 10% was Mr. Leo's voluntary offer. I smiled and accepted it without hesitation. The day I walked out of the civil affairs office, it rained. Maybe I have some connection to rainy days. All the major events in my life seem to happen on rainy days. The day we got engaged. The day we married. The day Leo first cheated. The day I decided to leave. And now, the day we divorced. Under the drizzling rain, Leo stood beside me and said softly, "Let me drive you." I shook my head. No need. Someone's coming to pick me up. Right after I spoke, Luis appeared with an umbrella. "Sis, I'm here. It's cold out. Put on an extra coat. You're already coming down with a cold." He fussed over me, draping a jacket over my shoulders. I accepted it without hesitation. Then, I stepped under his umbrella, and just then, the rain stopped. I looked up. The sun broke through the clouds, dispersing the gloom. Its light poured down, warming the chill of the rain. I smiled, turned around, and waved at Leo. Goodbye. The rain had cleared. Goodbye. To the shadows. Epilogue, regret. Useless. On the day of the divorce, Leo stood there, watching Miranda walk away under an umbrella with another man. He could still hear the boy chattering and Miranda's helpless laugh, but her eyes sparkled with genuine ease, a lightness he hadn't seen in her for a long time. He had always known Luis wasn't Miranda's lover. She wasn't capable of it. She had tried once, finding a boy and acting close with him, but when Leo saw the boy's face, he didn't worry, because the boy looked just like him. She couldn't let him go, so she would never truly take that step. Sure enough, that ridiculous act ended within a month. Miranda never crossed the line again. Drunk one night, Leo had told a friend about it. The friend froze, then sneered. "Maybe she doesn't love you. Maybe she just isn't as pathetic as you. Leo, you're going to lose Miranda like this. And when that day comes, don't say I didn't warn you." What had he said back then? Leo thought for a moment before remembering. He had laughed confidently and said, "Impossible. She'll never leave me." He thought he didn't love Miranda anymore. After so many years, he had been sure he was tired of her. But now, watching Miranda's figure disappear into the distance, his chest felt like it was being torn apart, as if he had lost the most important thing in his life. For a moment, he wanted to run after her, but as he took the first step, he stopped. He knew Miranda wouldn't turn back. She had once told him, "If you like someone, stay with them. If you don't, leave." Leo, I really don't love you anymore. Let's end this. She hadn't lied. She simply didn't love him anymore. Not ever again. Her future would be bright, like the sun after the rain, radiant and dazzling, and he would remain standing in the rain for the rest of his life. But no one cared. No one ever would again.